it is how these pieces are joined that is remarkable.
The Egyptians did not use nails or anything to construct the boats.
No screws, no rivets, no glue. This boat was held together by grass. Halfa is a strong wild grass that grows abundantly in northern Africa.
There are these long strands of grass which are very rough, but you rub them together in a particular way and it forms a very strong yet flexible rope.
Restorers have created a scale model of the boat.
This is how they used the ropes to construct the joins pieces in the boat. Incredible.
The development of this technique offered the Egyptians an advantage over rival nations.
At the time that the Khufu ship was built, most other places that we know about were only making dugout canoes out of logs.
Sewn plank technology meant the Egyptians could build much larger vessels than their competitors. They could carry heavier loads, travel greater distances, and they could trade throughout the known world.
The Egyptians didn't just paddle back and forth on the Nile. They were also fully capable of sailing out into the Mediterranean, places they wanted to go.
Shipbuilding was the basis of tremendous economic success. It laid the foundation for 3,000 years of civilization. Wealth brought by these boats paid for gigantic construction projects. But these temples and monuments couldn't have been built if the ancient Egyptians had not mastered the skills needed to quarry vast quantities of stone. Much of what we know about the Egyptians, we know because of the records they left in stone. These records have been vital to our understanding of their culture. This is the unfinished obelisk. It weighs over 1,000 tons. If it had been finished, it would have stood about 41 meters high, the highest Egyptian obelisk ever erected. It lies in the ancient quarry of Aswan in Upper Egypt. The obelisk was never fully removed. Archaeologists aren't certain why it was abandoned, but they have a theory.
The obelisk was the symbol of connection between the king and the sun god.
Obelisks are pieces of precision technology that had great spiritual significance.
For the Egyptians, an obelisk was a symbol of the sun. It was the ray of the sun, so it was sort of a power conductor.
Egyptians believed that obelisks worked like mystical lightning conductors, collecting and channeling energy from the heavens.
You had to have it in one solid piece of rock. If you had it broken, it would mean that the sunbeam was being broken, and thus you would shatter the power of the god.
So when the engineers discovered a crack in the obelisk at Aswan, they abandoned it. A piece of bad luck for the ancient Egyptians became a piece of good luck for modern science.
One of the things in archaeology that is almost as important as successes are the failures.
Evidence on and around the obelisk shows how the ancient quarrymen excavated the massive stones. It offers a snapshot of a 3,000-year-old work in progress. Using evidence from the unfinished obelisk, scientists are exploring how it was crafted.
We began to discover amazing things that did enrich our knowledge about obelisks for the first time.
Adel Kalani has spent a career investigating ancient quarrying techniques.
This is a good example for natural cracks in granite layers, which is really very important to looking for before to start working.
Granite has naturally occurring fault lines. By identifying and targeting these weak points, the ancient engineers could begin the process of splitting the stone from the bedrock.
It would be the ease of chiseling rock, because you'd have to cut the face, you'd have to kind of break pieces out of it, but there'd always be this plane of weakness that would help separate the rock in an expeditious manner.
In the second phase, laborers used stone to pound the fracture line and wear the rock down. These early sledgehammers were made of dolerite, a stone much harder than granite. But this technique took time, and time was a luxury the quarrymen didn't have.
Pharaohs always wanted their monuments done in a hurry. Many pharaohs were worried that they simply wouldn't be around long enough.
When completed, obelisks were placed at temple entrances. They were part of a pharaoh's legacy to posterity. But the average reign of a pharaoh was less than a decade, and no pharaoh would entrust the building of his legacy to a successor.
You had all of eternity for your monuments to last, but you had a very short lifespan in which to get them built.
From the sheer number of granite obelisks and statues that can still be found throughout Egypt, it's clear that the ancient quarrymen found a way to speed up the process.
What we have here, actually, it's all the story. It's like an open book. It tells us everything about what the Egyptian made.
Within the strata are charred mud bricks, burnt wood chips, and heat-fractured shards of stone. From this, Adel Kamani believes he's worked out how Egypt's engineers accelerated the quarrying process.
The Egyptian used fire to help them for splitting the stone.
Heat from a fire would cause the rock to expand, and cooling would make it contract. This process weakens and can even split the rock. In theory, if the Egyptians could control this heating and cooling process, they could split large sections of granite. But Adel has not tested the theory until now.
Exciting to see the result, because it's a new discovery.
Exactly as the ancient engineers did, Adel has selected a fault line in the rock. Mud bricks found at the unfinished obelisk site suggests that the ancient engineers built a wall to contain the fire. The fire raises the temperature to 425 degrees Celsius. This expands and stresses the rock. After 60 minutes of intense heat, water makes the temperature drop by 85% in seconds. The rock rapidly contracts.
Ooh. Oh, it's very hot, very, very hot.
Adel can now see whether the weakened stone is easier to split than a second untreated fracture. The workmen in the control group show little progress with the fracture line. But at the burn fracture, the crack has crumbled.
You can see how the fire setting affected with the granite layers. It's working very, very fast, more than what we have expected before. That explains how the ancient Egyptian made a lot of obelisks in very, very short times.
Adel is convinced that this was the way ancient Egyptians were able to quarry such large amounts of rock in such a short time.
One of the main mysteries of the ancient Egyptian techniques solved by this operation today.
The unfinished obelisk offered the clues. Then experimental archaeology showed that the theory could work. It explains how the Egyptians could quarry stone on such an extraordinary scale.
We discover exactly how they did cut an obelisk.
These great monuments still have the power to inspire awe. They were built thousands of years ago without any of our modern technology, and we're only just beginning to understand how. But the third discovery takes us beyond technology to Egypt's master builders, the men who created one of the most recognizable landmarks in history, the Great Pyramid.
No one is entirely sure how people, using very simple tools and a lot of sweat, managed to construct such an astonishing monument.